People are trying to get refunds outside of normal refund windows. I'm going to argue that the ability to ask for refunds is almost always not just ethical, but also good. Let's chat about it in the comments below. But first, my opinion. I'm Tarmac, and this is Feature Creep. Every now and then I have to deal with a mental tick that I'm sure many others do as well. I'll be listening to a podcast and want so badly to weigh in on a topic of discussion, but that would involve me talking to my car by myself, which is where most of my podcast listening goes on. This one in particular is in relation to a topic on the Co-Optional podcast with TB, Dodger, Crendor, and In Control. The discussion about refunds came up as a result of the false reports about Steam granting blanket refunds for No Man's Sky, and so this is my way of weighing in on the topic, which is actually one that I've talked about a bit before, but revisiting something as times change is occasionally a good idea. For the most part, the podcast discussion focused on the individual gamer side of whether or not, as a person, it is an ethical move to request refunds after normal time windows have elapsed. And I think this is a valuable discussion worth having and something that every gamer needs to be conscious of for their own level of comfort in their actions. That said, barring serial abuse situations, I'm going to argue that it's almost always ethical to ask for a refund, and if you get it, you did nothing wrong. I'd like to draw your attention to Costco. Costco has a very funny return policy. It has some limitations, like only within 90 days of purchase on electronics, some specifics relating to tires, diamonds, and booze, but quite literally, outside of the few exceptions, you can return anything, and there isn't actually a time limit in place. I've known people who have returned a mattress 8 years after buying it because the mattress developed a low spot and Costco took it back, no questions asked. It may seem crazy, but if you can't buy a mattress and expect 10 years or more out of it, why buy it in the first place? The odd thing about this situation is that outside of a few businesses, most places will force you to go with the manufacturer warranty, which usually involves repair or replacement with a refurbished unit, and that's the standard market norm that we have come to expect. We don't hold retailers to a higher level of accountability for the products that they sell, and so when you tell someone that you returned an 8-year-old mattress to Costco for a refund, there's a good chance that they'll claim you're being abusive by doing that. What does this have to do with video games? Well, video games at Costco are covered under the toys category, not electronics. So you can return an open video game at Costco whenever. Now, of course, they'll notice a significant trend as your returns are tied to your Costco membership, and they can refuse it if it becomes abusive, but then Steam does the same thing. So the question is it ethical to ask for a refund if you're not happy about a product? Clearly the answer that most people would go with is a conditional yes. In the case of video games, frequently the example of the person who has finished the game and then requested the refund will come up. In fact, developers of short, inexpensive experiences were extremely scared by the Valve refund policy at 2 hours for automatic refunds because that lets some people finish their game and still get guaranteed cash back. Where many people won't tread, though, is to go much more generous than that. Indeed, the podcast itself, talking about this, focused on that line somewhere where it's perceived to be unethical to request a refund after you've finished a title. According to a study done by the National Retail Federation in 2014, the usual rate of returns is around 8 to 9% of total sales, and this is of course with reasonable retail return policies. The thing about video games though is that they're purchased by the same people who buy retail products. There's nothing inherently different or more nefarious about gamers that would make video game return rates higher than retail products either. People are generally good and reasonable, so the idea that a better return policy will involve more abusive use by consumers is a bit of a false concern. Fraudulent returns, of course, do need some kind of system to counter them, but they're only around 0.5% of total sales, or around 6 to 7% of total numbers of returns. This is a cost of doing business and little more in my view, but what it means is that for the most part, a person returning a game after finishing it will only do so because they are genuinely not satisfied. The reasons that I feel it is ethical for a person who has bought a product to request a refund with much more broad limits involve a few things. For starters, by being able to force this kind of refund policy on developers, the real power of platforms like Steam, Origin, and such, we will get better products or be able to walk away from bad ones. This is especially true since Valve seems to have no desire to police its own store. In the case of Costco, the company very carefully selects products that it is comfortable taking responsibility for as far as the Costco brand, and the contracts it will maintain will also make sure it bears no financial risk to do this by shuffling all of those refund costs back to the manufacturer. Steam doesn't have limited floor space like a retail store, but an automated refund system serves the same purpose. It lets the users deal with refunds along with the review system to not just get their money back, but also tank bad products. They haven't figured out the brigading issue yet, but we can always hope, I suppose. But forcing developers versus helping them understand why it is better for them is an important aspect of all of this. The second and much more important reason that I say this is ethical is on the grounds of a more societal level of ethics rather than personal and individual. By providing a longer and more comprehensive refund policy, Valve will dramatically increase the number of sales on essentially all products that deserve it. Remember, this is the company that is selling you the product and the developer of said product telling you that they have such a high level of confidence in their product that they are willing to give you your money back if you're not happy for any reason. Is that going to make you buy way more products from them than you normally would? Statistically, the answer is yes. What we're talking about here is a bit of a paradigm shift that the game market could use and benefit from. A refund policy isn't about protecting consumers. It's not about making them happy after purchase. The fact that many people think that this is what it's for is a testament to the marketing of the companies who employ solid return policies. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. No, a return policy is a sales tool. There are studies that show an ideal profitable return rate on average of over 10%, meaning that if a customer is only returning 2% of their purchases, you're actually not doing a good enough job selling that customer enough of your products. You want to see your customers returning products because by the time the average customer has returned 10% of the stuff they purchase from you, they have spent far more money on the 90% of products that they keep. To bring this back to a micro level, if you know that you can return a game for any reason within, say, 30 days or 60 days, you're going to, on average, be willing to spend far more money trying out games. The Journal of Marketing posted a study a few years ago on this topic. The businesses studied with a return policy where the customer had to pay for return shipping saw a decrease in purchases between 74 and 100%. However, when providing free return shipping, saw an increase in purchases between 58% and 357% over the next 2 years. This is not chump change that we're talking about here. As I mentioned, it's a paradigm shift that would be required here. By accepting the premise that a customer refund for any reason with a generous time frame involved is an ethical transaction, high-quality products see a significant benefit, as do high-quality storefronts. And to take that a step further, numerous studies have also shown that discounted products receive fewer returns considering all other things equal, which is an area that Steam maintains a rather significant source of strength. It's not just because of the price, but also that a discount in price over the normal cost is a bit of a psychological trick that gives a higher perceived value for the customer, making them less likely to refund it when not satisfied. If, on the other hand, we vilify customers who aren't happy with a game, even long after they put 20 hours or more into it, we actually don't see much in the way of benefit. They've experienced the disposable product, and thus the claim comes that refunding it is not ethical. Sure, the developer may get to keep their money, but again, by vilifying that customer and saying they don't have a choice in the matter, the dev may well have missed out on more than one additional sale that they could have had with a better return policy. The long and short of all this is that I genuinely believe that the Steam refund policy is too limited. 2 hours of playtime is only enough time to judge customer satisfaction accurately on the technical performance of the product. A buggy runt of a game can be picked out of the litter in this time, but an overall unsatisfying experience or generally disposable game may not be. I think that they should open the floodgates up much wider to include a blanket 30-day return policy. Yes, there will be a short-term spike in refunds that may look a little bit scary, but after a few months, when the Steam customer base has adjusted to that new paradigm, the increase in the amount of games purchased based on the confidence level in the system will be huge. They will still need to have some barriers in place to curb abusive accounts, but that's no different than even a company like Costco has within their own internal systems. At the end of the day, it will be a net positive because, as I've mentioned before, marketing is black arts, and this is just how refund policies work. And of course, a great refund policy has a collateral benefit of keeping bad business practices at bay, which would have come in very handy with a few examples that I could name this year, last year, and probably every year to come. After all that I've said so far, have I managed to convince you that trying to return a game at just about any time is still a perfectly ethical thing to do? If so, cool. If not, why not? I'd love to see your responses. Feature Creep is a regular show on the channel, and I offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee or your subscription back. Follow me at Gnomecast on Twitter for more rambling. That's all I have to say. Tarmac out.